everyone on the outside thinks that I'm so calm. But when I'm alone, I often have this angry voice that comes in.
What's wrong with me when I feel anger?
Mm.
Because women are supposed to be agreeable and passive and sweet and soft and um,
So tell me more about this isn't a lovable part. What are you associating that with?
irrational, disproportionate anger. Um,
And what does that remind you of?
my father, if somebody saw that, they would 100% run.
Hey, Soul Family. Welcome to the Alive and Awake podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Kay, and I have spent the last 20 years teaching people how to work with their wounds and overcome their greatest fears so they can learn how to thrive in a world where they were only taught to conform. Each week, we will dive deep into the practical, the spiritual, and the mystical so I can teach you how to do the inner work to know yourself, trust yourself, and eventually love yourself enough to create a world where you feel fully alive, awake, and free. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode. Ready? Let's dive in.
Hello, everyone. I am here with the beautiful Caitlin and talking a lot about what has gotten her to this point, to where she is today. And before we hit record, we were actually discussing some of the things that we all struggle with so much as women. And what I like to say, what we are presenting on the outside is not always what we're feeling on the inside. And we have these parts of our personalities and the ways that we talk to ourselves or the feelings that we're having that we often shame, judge, want to push aside because we feel like we'll be rejected or we will feel like people will not accept us for the true array of what it is that we are. We have been predominantly dominated by a masculine culture and masculine society, and a lot of us have been so shifted into our masculine side, the doing, the performing, the logic, the reason, the structure, the careers, like all of it is very, very masculine in a way of being. But what we're not so good at is the feminine allowing and receiving of what that inner guidance is. And as we reject parts of ourselves, we then essentially create these protective barriers and these walls, thinking that we need to fix ourselves or that we need to be different than what we are in order to have what we want in our lives. And so, through today's conversation in real live coaching and transformation, I am hoping to help Caitlin really learn to accept and even if it's not love, to receive these parts of herself that she has kept hidden for so long. One of the things that she did say to me before we hit record was, everyone on the outside thinks that I'm so calm. But when I'm alone, I often have this angry voice that comes in that I use to, I don't want to say judge myself, but what her words were was like, what the fuck is wrong with me that I'm feeling this way? So, hearing all of that, what's coming up and rising to the surface?
Cringe, cringe. It's like, oh, I don't know if I want to. Yeah, I guess some resistance there to letting that be put out into the world. But I'm a space holder by trade. And as you already pointed out, it's not an uncommon phenomenon. Like I witness
Yeah.
it every day with the women in my chair that
Yeah.
they tell me things that they don't tell other people in their lives. And I think often to myself, I think it could be supportive and helpful to claim that myself, to like let that be seen because yeah, you start to clock patterns when time after time people are reflecting back to you how you are seen and you're like, I mean, that's really nice and I appreciate that. However, it's not the full truth. And
Mm.
I think that what I offer my clients, like you offer yours, is like allowing them to feel seen wherever they are and whatever they come in with. And it's like, I need that too.
Yeah.
I need to let that
Yeah.
be okay, that it exists within me.
And I think just honoring the brave part of you that is stepping forward to put this out there, in a very public way. And to me, that feels kind of like birth by fire. But oftentimes, what happens in our own shadow is that, yes, we can hold so much space for others, but there is a part of our personality, a younger version of ourselves, that believes that no one will do the same for us.
Big time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, can we talk with that part a little bit, or get to know that part of you that, in my words, not yours, learned to perform and perfect herself in order to be accepted?
Yeah.
Yeah. Where do you think that comes from?
I think very, very, very early on, I learned that there wasn't space for my needs, especially emotional needs, and that the strategy was to just be the steady. I remember my mom coming to therapy with me in my early adulthood, and my therapist asking her how I was as a child, and I'm one of four, and she was like, "You never really had to worry about Caitlin." And I felt like, okay, that's it. And I feel like that is a very early strategy that I took on of like, okay,
Mm,
in order to be safe, I have to be steady and stable and like suppress my own emotional reality because
mm.
the adults in the room are barely surviving their own. And, I think that the overachiever was, I don't know, a branch of that coping mechanism of like, I'm going to be as good as I can. And yeah, does that answer the question?
Yeah, yeah, and I'm really trying to stay in the moment with you and to hear you, but if I'm really honest, what's coming up in me is that, does she even realize that the mechanisms that kept her safe as a child to conform and to mold herself into being invisible and being unseen is the same limitations that you're living in right now?
I mean, I've made those connections. I think the sometimes the challenge is like feeling into her and letting her grieve and have her big feelings. Yeah, that's a continued challenge for me is out of the brain, come into the heart, come into the, somatic experiencing of this emotion
Mhm.
instead of analyzing it so heavily.
Yeah, and sometimes it's both. I think that we live in a world now where it's all about somatics, it's all about body, it's all about the releasing, it's all about the reconnecting. But the truth is that sometimes we can also handle that as well on a mind level. I mean, you have done an extensive amount of work, so I find it really hard to believe that you're still not okay feeling the emotion that comes up in you. And right now, obviously, we're on camera and it's a little bit different and there's some pressure there. So that may need to happen, but I also think too that it's a decision. Sometimes our inner child needs to know that I am making the decision for us to feel seen. And I am making the decision for us to operate in a world where we can feel free and authentic without thinking that everyone is out to get us or to judge us. What happens? You're smirking when I say those words.
I can feel that in my chest, saying like making the decision for us to be seen. And yeah, I mean it's vulnerable.
Yeah. And I
But
think
it's
that there's certain situations that that feels okay in, and there's certain situations where that doesn't, right? Like when you're in a professional role, probably not gonna let all that vulnerability come through. But in safe situations, like do you have friendships or people in your life where you kind of let down the wall a little bit?
I do. I have a couple sacred sisterhoods.
Yeah.
And having started over in adulthood, I moved to Denver 4 years ago and I was 38.
Yeah.
and rebuilding community and trying to build connections as a grown up. It's hard. And I've met lots of great people, but like getting to the part where I built a foundation of safety where I feel safe enough to let those parts of myself be seen. I see in myself that there's still like a really high level of standard that I'm like waiting for to feel safe to let those parts of myself come forward with the newer friendships, right? Like it, yes, I agree that yes, that there is part of the journey is understanding and recognizing a safe connection and a
Hmm.
safe space to allow those things to come forward. But I think that my standard is probably like a little might need a little extra stability and parameters to really feel safe to let that be shown. And the longing for that type of connection is really profound. And
Hmm.
again, I think I default into the role of curious space holding friend too,
Hmm.
not just at work. And I often find myself wanting to be like, okay, you have any questions about my heart?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's not something I've learned how to articulate. Hey, new friend, it would really feel good if from time to time you were curious, a little more curious about what's
Hmm.
going on in my internal world. Because I know I present as like,
Yeah. So it's what's happening, or what I'm sensing is that it's the little girl in you that is still waiting for someone to notice you. And when that is in the room, then she's the one that is leading the, not the conversation, but the energy that is exchanged, right? Because everything is energy. Everything is us projected out onto the world. How we feel internally is what we project out there externally. So essentially what's happening is you are unconsciously attracting, because I'm sure you follow Peter Krohn's work, right? Like his famous statement is that the universe will always give you circumstances and situations to show you where you're not free. So you are energetically calling in relationships where this pattern can continue to repeat. And in order to evolve out of this pattern, it's definitely the recognition of I'm the one that is not putting that into the room because I don't feel safe sharing about what I'm feeling, sharing about what I'm thinking, sharing about what I'm experiencing. And I am now letting my inner child be in charge, where I am then waiting. And when they're not asking about me and when they're not curious about me, then that reinforces all of the things that I believe about myself, which is no one cares. I'm invisible. And the story is that no one worries about me. Is that the statement that your mom said? Like, I never had to worry about Caitlin? Yeah. So, can you see how, because you're such a powerful magnetic woman and spiritual being, that you are inadvertently attracting that to you so that you can actually evolve out of it?
the thing that so often gets me stuck is okay, then the story I tell about that. Okay, I'm clocking this pattern. This
Mm-hmm.
is within me. I'm broken. I need to fix it.
Which is something that one of my spiritual teachers, Mary Margrave, calls the adversarial voice. And that is the same voice that Jesus went into the desert to confront for 40 days and 40 nights, right? It's like, I'm going to confront the adversary inside of me that is trying to tempt me to believe that I'm separate from love, I'm separate from God, I'm separate from the source that was within me that created me. So the adversarial voice is the one that is attacking you, saying, I'm broken, and therefore there must be something I need to fix within myself. Because if it continues to make you believe that, then you stay in a pattern of waiting and longing for what you ultimately desire. So then let's switch gears and let's figure out, if this is where you're stuck, if this is the limited belief, if this is what you're recreating, what is the desired outcome? Like, how do you want to feel? What does it feel like in your body? Tell me about what it is that you desire, instead of this thing that's been going on for so long?
I was the mantra, if I were to write it out, what do I desire? I want to be considered. I want to be somebody's priority. I want to be thought of. I want my people to be genuinely curious about the state of my being, the state of my heart. But yeah, that feels in my body like an exhale. That feels like safety in being held and cared for, not alone in the world. That's part of the wounded narrative is that I'm an island,
Yeah.
and that so easily and quickly can make me feel connected to somebody. It's like when I genuinely feel their curiosity about
Mm,
how I'm doing, where I'm at in the world, just even if it's just a text,
yeah.
um, and not the performative kind. That's definitely a wound, mine too, because I'll sit there and I'll genuinely ask questions and be like, and then you can see like somebody click into like, oh, I should ask a question now. And then there's like, well, what about you? How are you? And it's like, that's not, you know what I mean? Not
No,
the,
it's not heartfelt. It's not,
yeah, the
yeah.
genuine part.
Mhm. Yeah. So, one of the things that I know you've heard and that I also believe and preach at this point is that the universe is just you pushed out, like every person in it. And ultimately, what the soul and the higher self is waiting for is for you to turn it around, right? Because some of the things that you're describing to me of what you desire in another person is actually not what you are giving to yourself.
100%.
Like you are still holding judgment based on what you told me right before we hit record, is that I have this anger inside of me and I have this part of me, and there are pieces that you are looking for someone else outside of us to, well, women do this. Well, I'm not saying that masculine don't do it too, but I predominantly work with women and I see it often, is that I am looking for someone outside of me to give me that validation, to give me that acceptance, to give me that time, that attention, that curiosity, when I'm not then doing it for me. And then, therefore, I'm only seeing what people are not doing. And then I'm not actually seeing the ways in which the universe is actually showing me that I am cared for and that I am supported. So we like negate all the good and we only see the bad because what we focus on, that's how powerful our mind is, actually grows until we're actually ready to break out of that pattern and that paradigm and then actually be able to see that maybe this person was not curious about me, but someone that was cashing out at the grocery store actually asked me with an open heart and a big smile, how am I doing today? We don't see that stuff because it doesn't resonate or doesn't infiltrate into the wound, right? The inner child really is looking for complete love and acceptance from
Mm.
other, but that actually starts with love and acceptance complete of self. That's where we find wholeness. And then when we start to actually feel that, when we start to become curious, when we start to accept all parts of ourselves, then then it starts actually showing up in the external reality. Right? Like you this is interesting that she is has her phone on all of her yearbooks. So there are parts of our personalities that we shame, judge, and exile that we need to be curious about.
Yeah.
And then when we're curious about them, when we stop shaming them and we stop judging them, then we no longer need it from other. It becomes something that is a bonus, but not something that is used to fill a void.
Yeah, it's definitely one of my specialties is fixating on the evidence to support the wounded narratives. And with the influx of anger that I've been experiencing more acutely in the last, like, I don't know, it's probably been close to a year. There's a part of me that's very aware, okay, this is coming forward because it's ready for you to like look at it, integrate it, honor it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, coming from a house with a lot of vitriolic anger,
Mm-hmm.
it makes sense from a logic standpoint that, of course, I don't think that it's okay
Yeah.
because for me, the way that I'm experiencing it with myself is with myself.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's always something small. I spill something, I knock something, something's not working as I'm like in the kitchen, and it's like a explosive bit of rage. And I'm like, immediately the story is, what the fuck is wrong with you?
So that's happening now, not just what
Yeah,
you experienced in childhood.
correct. This
Okay.
has been more, it's been more at the surface lately. And in trying to work with it, I've noticed this like really like no, no, it's not okay to love this part. This is not a
Mm-hmm.
lovable part. This
Mm-hmm.
is no, absolutely not. And then it, oh, okay. So
Yeah.
that's why it's gotten so loud, right?
Yes. So tell me more about it's not, this isn't a lovable part. What are you associating that with?
Irrational, disproportionate anger. Um,
And what does that remind you of?
my father.
Okay.
I mean, it's a pretty straight line there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I feel like the polarity uh, between my parents. My dad had the very outburst, like hateful type of anger, and then my mom's always been like very passive aggressive type of anger. She doesn't identify as angry whatsoever. It's just different flavors. So I think that within me, there's like a subconscious, like, none of that. I don't want to be that. And I don't want to be that. So, like, none of
Mm.
that. And I think that we've reached a point in my journey of suppression where it's like the high pressure system, the valve is blowing off and it's here. You got to look
Yeah.
at it. You got to, yeah, let it breathe, I guess. And that's very crunchy for me.
Yeah. You know, your higher self is asking you to look at it because I don't think it's so much the emotion that is the problem versus the association that your brain has paired with the emotion.
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine that the little girl felt a ton of fear, you know, at her father's extreme reactions. And in a way to cope and strategize to not be like your dad or make anybody feel the way that your father made you feel, you have unconsciously decided that anger is something that I cannot accept within myself or from another human being because it was used in a way that caused a lot of damage emotionally within you. Yeah. So, what happens when we tell the little one inside that anger is righteous and when used appropriately in a non threatening and a non harming way, it actually can teach us a lot about what we want, what we don't want, what we need to protect ourselves from, and what it is that we ultimately have standards for in our lives now as adults.
I still think there's some resistance to that.
Yeah,
In my mind, I'm like, yeah, of course. Yeah, boundaries. We need that.
right. Totally. And what if I told you that the strategy that the dark forces used on the planet to deny the feminine of her consciousness was to make her feel incredibly ashamed of her rage,
I mean,
essentially to send Lilith to the depths of hell and separate us off, right? The darkness is bad, right? The Mary Magdalene as the prostitute and the Mary Magdalene as the enlightened healer is within our own consciousness that we are all breaking free from as women that are choosing to stay part of this earth plane now. And that some of your work is learning how to re embody her and reattach to her and give her new associations so that it's not associated with a masculine.
That feels true. That feels
Yeah.
deeply true.
Yeah.
Um, it's, yeah, getting to stay rooted and like living in my body. And I think that there is this piece of it that is messed up and entangled with growing up in a very Christian, conservative household, which one of the practitioners I've been working with lately has clocked in her practice this pattern of like the rigidity in that type of upbringing, often lending itself to that extreme imprint of good and bad, right and wrong. This is bad. I am bad. I am wrong. Case in point, what's wrong with me when I feel anger?
Mm.
Because women are supposed to be agreeable and passive and sweet and soft and um,
Which is the fake feminine,
right, 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 right,
right?
right.
Which is the programmed feminine,
Uh-huh.
not the real feminine, right? I mean, if we even just looked at the mother, we are reattaching to the mother aspect of God, the goddess. And if we look at the earth plane, she's pretty damn messy. She's got a lot of a lot of eruptions, a lot of explosions, a lot of reintegrations, a lot of rebirthing. Like there's so much beauty and there's also so much depth, right? Like we have that in our consciousness. And I believe that we are working as a collective to reattach to the truth of the feminine that was exiled out of existence before we even came into the earth plane. So as you are experiencing some of these things in your body and you're feeling that resistance inside, the work is to learn to reattach to a brand new paradigm that, yes, feels scary, but to detach anger from a masculine type of an entity. So,
Sign me up.
so do you believe that you chose this life before you came into this body?
I do.
Yeah. So then the part of you that's still holding on to the wound that was created by the father, that has taught herself that she is only loved and accepted if she performs and she's perfect, was created so that you could have a breakthrough to re evolve into the truth of who you are outside of that programming. So, as a little girl, is there an image that you can come up with of dad being volatile?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And can you associate the story of, I'm imagining, like, what did you say about dad? Like, I never want to be like him. I hate him. Like, what language did you put on his behavior?
Then, like as
Yeah.
a child,
Mm-hmm.
that's interesting. I don't know that I told the story of hating him. I think it was more subconscious. I need to get away from that. I did have a lot of anger towards him, which is the ironic part. I feel like, especially as I in adolescence and prepubescence, like I was a bitch to him. I was like such a, I mean, I wasn't like that to anybody else outside of the house, but so I guess I was like him in that regard. I was being, I think that that felt like self-protection at the time. It was like it wasn't safe for me to have my soft parts in that household. So to answer your question, what was the story? I don't know if I was conscious enough to have a story at the time. I think all of this has come after removing myself from the house. Did I even start? I started going to therapy when I was like 20, and the catalyst at the time was my anger, mostly coming out in sarcasm at the time, and that was being reflected to me of like, when you're like,
Mm.
I can't ever tell if you're joking or not. And then I heard somewhere that sarcasm is just a front for anger, and I was like,
Mm.
oh no, I gotta go fix that.
So what's interesting as you share your story and you kind of unpack it a little bit is that you absolutely had a part of you that allowed herself to be angry, that you had labeled as a bitch. And so therefore, I don't want to be a bitch and I don't want to be sarcastic. So I'm going to completely do a 360 and I'm going to turn that anger inward and present to the outside world that I'm kind, I'm calm, I'm nice, I'm a space holder.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful, right? There's no judgment there. If everything is perfect, everything is fine always and always on time. And so therefore, it's not about fixing or changing, it's about integration of all of these parts of you. So if you weren't turning on yourself and angry at yourself for spilling the milk or spilling whatever and saying what the fuck is wrong with you, what is the truth? What would you actually be saying externally?
In those moments,
Yeah, in those moments or to people in a way that you could set a boundary or that you could speak the truth about what's upsetting you. How can you use it in a way that feels like the most highest loving Caitlin way? That's not hiding from her anger, but not outwardly expressing it the way that your dad did, but also not turning it against you and shaming yourself for having it.
it's a great question, Alicia. I don't know. I don't know. I think specific to what I'm labeling within myself as like the disproportionate explosive moments, what the furthest I've gotten is just like, okay, it's here. Like I haven't gotten to the point of being able to fully love that part or give it a healthier outlet.
Mhm.
I think
And
it's
that might
just
be too
like,
far.
yeah,
Yeah, like that might be too far. Love is something that comes over time, but I think it's manifesting in you because it's calling you forward, right? Like in those moments, that is where you invite in curiosity. What am I really upset about right now? Because it has nothing to do with the milk or whatever
right.
it is that you spill. The world, the outer world is always a manifestation of our past thoughts, and our brain is always preoccupied with thoughts of the past, which is like a Course in Miracles stuff. So, what am I really upset about that I haven't allowed myself to see? And maybe that is something that you're upset with yourself about that you haven't allowed to come forward, which is then manifesting, and the adversarial voice is using that against you right now.
Feels like just as you say that, and as I'm putting myself in these moments of disproportionate anger, it feels like not improbable that it's connected to like literally the messy parts, like it's so often like I'm clumsy and I'm dropping shit all the time and hurting myself in little ways all the time and like spilling things, and it comes out in these like bursts, and it's pointing to the allowance of the parts that are messy, literally like less perfect. Yeah.
What is unacceptable about the part of you that's clumsy and messy?
I don't know if it is exactly if it's like that literal. I think that it's like an inroad to the bigger repression of or rejection of my messy parts, like internal messy, aka dark, shadowy, like imperfect parts. Because yeah, some people are clumsy. Like I don't. It can be charming,
Yeah.
but yeah, I it just feels so highlighted for me right now that it's okay. What? It's like, what is this trying to show me? That's so prevalent. And that, yeah, that just kind of popped in now, like I said, like listening to you
Yeah. So sometimes,
reflect
right,
it.
because our soul wants us to be free, our soul wants to accept all of the truth of who we are, right? The messy, the imperfect, the beautiful, the loving, all of it. And it sounds like the younger part within you is still holding on to the cellular memory of what it felt like in your body to have to deny those parts of yourself, like to
Mhm.
keep them repressed because of the home environment, of mom being passive aggressive and not allowing herself to be mad, but also the outward expression of dad that felt very, very unsafe with that emotion. And it's coming up now because you ultimately want to feel free from that. Because we don't have parents that treat us like we're little goddesses and princesses in human form and can do no wrong, we ultimately put barriers and limitations around our fullest expression in order to be able to survive and feel safe in our body and get through that time. And there is this part that has now associated that anger is unsafe. I will not be accepted if I'm somewhat messy or if I show my true, real emotion. And I would even take it one step further of actually asking for what it is that I need out of my friendships and out of my relationships.
Yeah, there's definitely a internalized belief there that if I, especially around the anger, like if somebody saw that, they would 100% run. And I remember talking about that with one of my closest friends, and I said that, and she was like, "And what if they did turn away from you?" And I was like, "Ugh, we need to change the subject." So yeah, that's definitely still live in the story I have around letting all parts of myself be seen.
Well, let's challenge it a little bit. Is it true? Is it true that anybody that you show this part of you to is going to leave?
I don't know yet.
Mhm. Have you ever in your life experience showed your anger or showed your messy side to anybody?
I have a long standing history of losing friendships when I spoke up for I showed my sadness, I showed my struggle, anxiety, and I spoke up for my needs. I have, yeah, I can off the top of my head think of 5 different girlfriends I've lost connection with in the last 8 years or so. The theme for sure. Once I stopped being easy breezy, dependable, doesn't take up any space, Caitlin. It was like, whoa, don't mess with my vibe. Or the other story, which of course can see the through line straight to childhood, or it was like whatever the other person was going through was like bigger, more important, more stressful, more hard, more difficult. And how dare you have needs at a time when I'm going through this? Or like, how do you not understand that I can't show up for you right now? So, yeah, I guess specific to the anger,
Yeah.
that's not a part that I brought into disagreements in friendship, but the other stories, the other vulnerable moments, feelings that I dared to let show. And every time it felt like it was so deeply uncomfortable. I remember saying to one of the friends, this literally feels like my skin is peeling off right now. Like, I
Mm.
don't want to tell you this, but like, this is what's happening in me. And I'm heartbroken and I want to save this connection. And it didn't pan out that way. So, yeah, there is historical reference,
And
evidence.
so, what if today you draw the line in the sand around I am no longer available for friendships or relationships unless they can see the full capacity of me and accept me as who I am? Because we only draw in relationships from the place that we are in at that time, right? So if the belief was there that I can't show my true self and that people will leave me, essentially that's what we manifest in our outer reality.
Mhm.
So the only thing that well, I don't want to say the only thing, but going forward, what I would recommend is that I am no longer available for relationships that recreate this wound in me. I am only available for relationships with people that want to see me in my full capacity and authenticity because I know your heart. I know that you come from a place of love. I know that the anger that you think is coming out of you is sort of like a threat of like your father, but I don't even know if that would be in the room with you because even if you set a boundary or say how you feel, I know that you are not mean and I know you don't want to cut people down. And it is not your fault if someone can't receive that because they're not as aware or invested into doing work alongside you to build a healthy relationship where all parts can be in the room. Like there has to be a decision where you stop allowing that or believing that that's all that you can be available for. It has to start with you.
I agree. I will say that for as many times as that pattern played out, I feel like every time I stepped away from that relationship, it was like there was a part of me that was able to like own that like I don't regret that. I can tell that there's parts within me that want to latch on to that as evidence that
Mhm.
not all parts of me are welcome, but I named those parts and I showed those parts and I don't regret that because I know that that's what I want. I know that I want connections in my life where I can show you those parts of my heart and you're not going to like if anything, this is how I know the people that I am connected to most deeply. The reason that we are is because we show each other. There's a reciprocity in showing each other the messier bits. And it's like, oh, that actually makes me feel closer to you.
Yes, right? Because
Like,
transparency and vulnerability actually bring intimacy and connection. I'm in a relationship now, and I can't tell you how much this gets challenged in me when I have to talk to him about the inner child wounding that comes up literally just from his male presence alone. And I'm like, literally shaking. I'm doing this work too, not just everybody I'm working with, but I'm experiencing it in real time. And I'm like, oh, if I tell him what's coming up in me, this is an edge. This is a huge fucking risk. And it's so uncomfortable. But at the end of the day, it's like we have to understand that there are people out there that are created for us, that are in this journey with us, that don't want us to hide. My partner says to me, I can see it on your face because you're so loving and you're so sweet. And when you're not at peace with me, he was like, you don't look at me the same. Your energy changes. I can tell you're shut down. And I don't want that in the room, right? I want the loving Alicia. I want the free Alicia. I want the one that's pouring over me and present with me, not the one that's in her fucking head.
yeah,
Not that he doesn't accept that, but he's like, let's work through it because I want to get back to the real thing
yeah.
here. I want to get back to the real us. So, whatever's in the room, let's get it out so that we can come back to connection. And there are conscious people out there who don't want the fakeness anymore. I think in some ways we're kind of ahead of our time because we've been doing this work for so long. But I think it is literally making the decision of this is what I'm available for, and this is what I'm not available for anymore. Because I'm sensing that, like you said before, we hit records, like you're on this precipice
Mhm.
of this like breakthrough of almost being like out of the chrysalis. This is me. This is who I am. I want to feel so free in my life and in my relationships where it's nourishing all aspects of me, not just the parts of me that I have deemed acceptable, that I've then projected onto other people of what they will or will not accept from me. What does that feel like?
No, I mean it feels true. There's the little voice that perks up in the corner. It's like, yeah, but like also like I need to feel safe and let those parts come forward again, like having that curiosity
Mhm.
reciprocated.
Safety is a feeling.
Yeah.
It's not in the mind, it's in the body. When you think of, let's just use this. archetype, who was the safest person you've ever come across in Fit for Service? Which one of the coaches?
Caitlin.
Caitlin. Yeah. So, what does it feel like to be in Caitlin's presence?
It feels like an exhale. Like
Mm,
she's, when you said earlier, you're doing the work too. You're in the trenches doing this work too. And I was like, yes, that part. Like that is always been what I'm drawn to in mentors, people whose work I follow. It's not the ones that seem perfect and the ones that seem like they have like the guru
mm,
pedestalization of people that seem to have it all together. It's
mhm,
the ones that show, and I've told Caitlin this various times, like, this is why I've always felt so magnetized to you and your work is that you share your struggles and the wisdom and beauty that comes from that is so much more resonant for me because I know you're not out there not struggling. You keep showing up to your own internal battlefield ready to face it and to make a ceremony out of it. Like
mhm,
that's the goal, not what I'm doing to myself of making only these parts acceptable and hiding these parts or judging
mhm,
these parts. I had this breathwork ceremony at the Sedona Fit for Service where it was like just a visceral experience. I am all of it, all of
mhm,
it, all of it. I came here to feel all of it. I came here to experience all of it. And that's the goal. That's the end goal is to allow for the fullest, completest expression of my humanity. And I, again, like that is what I'm drawn to in others. And that is what I feel in Caitlin's presence is if I was like brutally honest with her, I feel viciously insecure right now. I feel extraordinarily anxious right now. I feel like I'm crumbling, and all of it would be held
mhm.
and in non-judgment, like radical non-judgment. And yeah, that's appealing because that's what I want for myself, right? This journey of coming home to yourself.
But that's also who you are.
Yes.
Right? And I'm like, I keep getting goosebumps all over because obviously we're hitting some gold here, and that these mentors or these people are only representing the aspect of you that you have not yet accepted and fully embodied.
Mm-hmm.
They are only mirroring to you your gold and what wants to come through you. And so that's the weird kind of thing of how the universe works is that as I actually start to accept me and become available for people in my life that are that way, then I I shift. It's the people that I'm choosing to surround myself by, which we can say up until this point or up until we'll even say today, if you choose to make that decision, that I am only available for people, circumstances, and experiences that are going to help me emulate my gold and bring out all parts of me with loving kindness, acceptance, and non judgment. Because that's what you have in you. And that's clearly what you've attracted. You found me, you found Fit for Service, you found Caitlin. I'm sure that there's other mentors that you've worked with, but like that's the power that you hold. But the only thing that's holding you back is believing that I have to hide, pretend, and perform and be perfect in order to be accepted, which is the limitation and the construct of the lie that you keep recreating.
Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm. I am no longer available for people, circumstances, and experiences that negate, don't accept the totality of who I am.
That's it. Write it on a post-it, put it on your phone, see it all the time. I remember people laugh at me sometimes. They're like, I have very frank conversations with God, spirit, source, whatever language you want to use. And I'm like, listen, the, you can't interfere with free will, and I know that. But it is my free will choice to say I am no longer available for learning from circumstances in this life, from poverty, lack, scarcity, limitation, and suffering. I am only available from this point on to my highest timeline from learning through the truth of who I am, which is love, abundance, prosperity, freedom, joy, and play. That is, that's it. I get to enter my highest timeline because I'm done with the bullshit wounding now. I've extracted everything I possibly can from that. That's what we get to create when we choose to own our power as women. We are magnetic. We magnetize things through our thoughts, beliefs, and perceptions. Right? So if we want to stop living from the wound, we have to make the decision to say, I'm no longer available from learning through this wound. I only want to see the totality of who I am and what I can bring to the table when I allow myself to feel safe enough to be my fullest expression. So please show me people and bring people into my lives that are going to allow that within me.
And
Right?
so it is.
I am in service to others when I give full permission for me to be the ray of who I am. What's happening inside as we say all that?
The order is placed.
Yeah. How is the little girl inside of you doing as she hears these words?
She's excited.
Mm.
Yeah, it's like, when you see someone, I don't have kids, but you do, so when you see someone manage a child's tantrum, and it's just the way that it diffuses so much faster when the parent can just hold steady and like let it be there. And then they're like, okay, let's go play. And you're like, wow, okay.
Yeah, because they don't
Yeah.
have all the
Mhm.
programming that we have. I do
So,
that with my child. I'm like, you know what? You're feeling some really intense emotion right now. Go feel it. Come back to me when we can have a conversation and we can talk it out. You don't shove down the emotion. Tears and anger and full expression are the way that we actually stay connected to our inner selves. And then that confidence builds. But before we close, I want to circle back. So after the conversation of the order is out there and the
mhm.
little girl inside feels excited, I want to present the question or pose the question one more time of what is it that you need to fix within yourself?
From my higher perspective,
Well, just from our conversation today.
well, the thing that I'm not broken, I don't need to fix anything. But the thing that I feel is essential in my work with myself is the um, allowing the acceptance of my darker expression.
That's right. That's right. It's all allowed to be in the room. There's nothing I have to fix. There's nothing I have to change except for my thoughts and beliefs and perceptions about it that are keeping me tied to a program and conditioning that are not even real and not even happening anymore.
Right.
Everything in this reality is neutral except for the thoughts and beliefs I put onto it. Right? So if there's nothing that I need to fix within myself, and it's all part of my human experience, and I can choose to make the choice to believe that I can and will be loved and accepted for all that I am, then nothing is broken, nothing is wrong, and I'm right on time.
Right on time. Mhm.
And as I start to cultivate that and believe that within me, and when I notice my brain going unconscious or shifting into a thought of what the fuck is wrong with me, that's always the invitation to say, oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. I'm a human being.
Mm.
And I can have compassion for myself for this really difficult experience that I chose to embark on. That was a somatic yawn.
That was me releasing.
So good.
Yes. Lovingly redirecting my thoughts. Yes.
Right. It's like, oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. I'm human. And there's room for it all.
Mhm, 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 mhm. I do believe that. It feels like probably the stickier one for me, the stickier feeling to allow space for. So it makes sense that it's gotten as loud as it has, the anger.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. What we reject, what we try to dismiss actually becomes louder.
yeah, she's been real loud. So,
Okay, good, good.
so thank you.
All right. So hanging on a post-it, bringing compassion. Let her be there.
Let her be there.
Let her be there. You don't need to change or fix her. It's just, all right. Yeah, I'm having a fucking moment. That's totally okay.
Nothing wrong with a little fire, right?
No, no, no. It's honestly, it's my personal opinion is it's kind of boring when people are all put together all the time.
It's true. It's true. But also, I think for me, I feel like it's okay. Also, maybe you can reorient it to it being at least some of it being a part of what helped you survive was like having having some fire and not being a
Mhm.
total. I think the hypersensitive within me
Yeah,
wouldn't have survived otherwise. So,
that's right. My fire is
um,
mine. My fire is not my father's.
yeah,
I'm not giving that to him. It's mine. And
totally
I get to use it
fair.
and I get to use it in a way that feels safe and appropriate to me now.
Yes, preach. Thank you.
Good, good. All right. Any last minute thoughts before we come to a close?
I don't think so. Thank you. Thank you for doing this and for having me here.
Yeah. Thank you for your bravery and your transparency and vulnerability and all that it took to be on our call today. I really appreciate it. And you.
Ditto, sister. So much
Yeah.
ditto. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mwah.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this full episode as we really dove into a lot of the past programming and stories and beliefs that were coming up for Caitlin around her allowing herself to be the fullest expression of herself. There are so many women in this world that feel like they need to hide their anger. They judge their anger. They're ashamed of their anger. And coming from a place of being highly wounded by our mothers and our fathers for the way that they express their anger even reinforces that so much stronger. So if you are someone that quote unquote thinks that they have anger issues, or if that angry voice has turned within and become a very strong quote unquote inner critic and is judging you or shaming you for the way that you feel or behave or look, then I absolutely invite you to take into consideration some of the things that we put into practice for Caitlin today. You get to decide how you feel about it. You get to decide where this programming and conditioning came from so that you ultimately can embody a new truth, one that actually allows you to feel free because a feminine in her power is incredibly boundaried and allows herself to feel the full array of all of her emotion without hurting another person. But the truth is that when you don't allow that to be there and you don't allow it to be in the room and you're not curious about it and you don't explore it, it turns so inward that it gets so loud that you actually start to become your own inner abuser. And that is heartbreaking. If you would like to work on this in real time and go through some of the things that I went through with this podcast guest, then apply for another Awaken with Alicia episode because I can guarantee that your story is going to impact so many. And as women, we need to come together. We need to embody what it is to be strong and to be soft. We have that capability within us. But if we continue to beat ourselves up and to deny what's coming up inside of us, then we actually become the outward expression of what we're not proud of. So, thank you for tuning into the show. I can't wait to share more enlightening and transformative episodes with you.